What's the difference between people that make a lot of money and people that don't? Well, people that make a lot of money, they probably have the ins and outs of how to make a lot of money. The people that don't make a lot of money don't have the ins and outs. They know that if they go apply for a job, or it's been like that their whole life, they don't get the ins and outs. There's a lot of people that don't get the ins and outs. If you want to work your way up a ladder, you need the ins and outs to get up the next rung. If you don't have them, you're just stuck there. And there's people that will keep you there, and that's what they call mushroom people. And some people that put forth an effort to keep people as mushroom people think that they're, just because they're a rung up from the mushroom people, that they have a higher step, and they're mushroom people too, because they're just filling a void. And there's going to be a point that they're going to run into where they're not going to have the those ins and outs given to them, or in a place where they can find them. And that goes with studying. People, there's certain ways of studying. I realized when I was in school, like if you're taking notes in class, there's some people that their lineage, maybe their parents and their grandparents went to college and have instilled in them the ability to what to listen to, what to know, and it's already instilled in them from their parents and grandparents doing something. It's from the experience, not from experience necessarily at work, but from the experience of how to study. And there's people that know how to study, and they can work their way up and go through school, but then get out and not have any experience in anything, and then they'll suck on somebody with 20 years of experience to get to claim that what they know now is from experience, and it's just what they did is they sucked on somebody else, so they keep them in close tow. And you can see that in the workplace, where people that have experience are in close tow with somebody with college, and they'll use that close toe until they can break away, and they've gathered all the experience that person's going to give, and then they push them aside and they take another rung up the ladder. But why people don't want to work and why people do want to work is because the people who do want to work have the ins and outs to make more money. Everybody knows a little bit about marketing, but you have to know the ins and outs of marketing and where and what to say. You can say, well, I need marketing, but it doesn't mean you have the ability to find the right kind of marketing. You can have the right location, but have a poor customer service. You don't care about customers. There's a lot of things that can put you out. And there's people in bad locations that, even though they say location, 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 that's one thing you want. But it's also, nowadays, look at what location does nowadays with the internet. It doesn't matter where you're at. You can live in the middle of nowhere and ship stuff, from in the middle of nowhere. So it's not really location unless you're brick and mortar. But why people want to work and why people don't want to work is the freedom. People that want to work, but they gain a lot of monetary, not aid, because aid would be like somebody else giving it to them. And if you take into account that a lot of people say they're self-made people, it takes other people for those self-made people to make it. I mean, they don't just, money doesn't just grow on trees. It takes people buying their product to make those people money. They didn't make it on their own. It was people had to actually buy or invest in their product. And that's a continual. So all these multi-billionaires still rely on people to invest or buy their products, unless they've just retired from business because they've made so much money and they can just live off that. But those people that work up the ladder are making money more. So if it's their own, especially if it's their own business, you're making a percentage. 99% of the people, there's with that 1% that, they make the same amount. They put their uh, expenses in the same as the people that work for them. And there's like what, one or two people like that. But people that don't want to work because it takes away their free time, and they believe the free time that's taken from them from work doesn't pay them what exponentially with the amount of work they put in, because they'd rather have their free time than what they get out from losing their free time, or the amount of free time that they'd lose for work. If you put in I don't even know if you can put in 8 hours a day, because I think most people nowadays are 10 and 12-hour work days, because they've just jumped up to where I don't know whether it's the more people, or they can't hire as many people, or it's easier to pay somebody for 10 or 12 hours work than it is to pay somebody for 8 hours, and then hire somebody else. So that's more work. If they have to hire two people to do one person's job, then that's more, it's just more time, and time to them is money. But the people that don't want to work think it's their freedom is being taken, not their free time. And if you're going to work, and a lot of people think, well, they would rather work in their free time because they can make money working. But not everybody can make money in accordance with. There's some people that make a lot of money, and they would rather make a lot of money all the time than have a little bit of free time where they're not making that big amount. They lose a lot of money not working that free time. So they'll use the free time that they usually take to work, because they can make a lot of money. But now there's people that work an hourly or whatever it is, that there's basically a limit you can make in a fixed income. Basically, it doesn't matter if it's hourly or a percentage. There's basically still the amount of hours you put in, even if you're on a percentage pay like a sales, unless you're high dollar, in some high dollar sales. But there's a certain amount of money you can make, and they would rather do that block of hours work and have the free time than work the extra free time and not really make as much money as, say, this person over here that's got the ins and outs of how to make a lot of money all the time, where you just make it here, it's almost a fixed income. And so a lot of people that don't want to work, they're uneducated, they're illiterate, and they think the free time lost for work is their freedom. And they think, well, everybody's all talking about freedom, and taking my free time is taking my freedom. So it's basically illiteracy is doesn't want to work, and that's what this country's coming to. I think they're breeding more illiterate people. Whoever's breeding is making illiterate people that think free time and freedom are the same thing. This country wouldn't be where it is if people didn't use their free time to work. I mean, these people are out here trying to gather food and shelter and everything, whether it's in say it's a homeless person or somebody just, whatever, trying to just gather food, shelter, and clothing. Now they could work, say, 10 hours a day and have, 14 hours off, and be fed and have heat and have shelter for that 10 or 12 hours work. They'd have 12 hours off. And they'd have food, shelter, and clothing. They wouldn't, it wouldn't be living out under a tree with a tarp, dragging a shopping cart. But they think that free time is freedom. And do they really have? Is there really? It's illiteracy that. I mean, who would want to? Like right now, it's -1 degrees. I would hate to be living outside. I mean, there's people. Now, if I was, today I got, for some reason we got the day off because, it's not paid off, but the freaking storm that came through, it'd be useless to try to. They figured it'd be useless to try it. And we'll probably go to work tomorrow. Yesterday was going to be our day off, but today we got off, and we'll probably go back to work tomorrow when the roads are clear. But the people that have this free time, they want it all the time because they believe that's their freedom, and they believe everybody's working for freedom. This is a free country. Everything should be, it's just a literacy that is just saying to them, everything should be free, and we should be free to do whatever we want all the time. Now, even Neanderthals had jobs within a village. Otherwise, a lot of people would be cast out of a village, or cast out of a lot of people in every city or villages or empires prior to civilization, even in barbarian times. If they weren't putting forth an effort to help the village, if they were just eating the food and taking everybody else's time, forcing everybody else to work for them, they would probably be cast out of a village, and that does become outlaws living on the outskirts of these villages in the woods, and having to go in at night and raid for whatever they could if they couldn't make it on their own. Or they got together with other outlaws and created their own villages, which were outlaw villages, and who knows what kind of, they became tyrants. They became, whatever. If they were just outlaws that band together and then just raided, didn't ever work, but then they grew up big enough that there's some people, they'd force people to stay in camps and watch their loot or whatever it was. After a while, there would become jobs in these outlaw cities. Now, I don't know what cities would have emerged from from history. There's probably there's some village in history that has nobody's ever known about it, that they grew up from outlaw encampments, and it became a big city. I don't know where it'd be. Probably a lot of them. But anyway, that's what it is. It's if you don't work, you're going to be thrown to the edges, and even people that do work, but I mean, if they don't want to put an effort in, they just show up. Where they, there's stair steps of jobs that get you in certain places. I guess it's not always like that. The harder you work, maybe if you work so hard that you don't have time to look for another job, then you're stuck in that job. But sometimes you'll get the if you work hard for long enough, you might be able to start finding other jobs then another job might be your stair step to making more money and stuff. But these people that don't want to work think it's taking away their free time, which they claim is freedom. I believe that's illiteracy. It's got to be, because you're striving for the same thing. You're striving for shelter, food, clothing. You're striving for the same thing, even though you're out in the woods or something, or digging through dumpsters. You're putting in an effort for the same thing. Why not get a job? Why not get rid of the stupidity? Because it basically is. That's stupid to want to live like that. You still get some free time. I mean, if you work 10 years at a place, of course there are jobs that some people just stuck in because they're crappy jobs, and they want them filled. And I think the more those crappy jobs should be robot filled, having person work just even though it's an existence. Some people might think, well, it's a part-time job or it's a full-time job and it's getting me by, but there's not going to be any getting by with the way the prices and inflation. I don't think inflation is going to be inflation anymore. It's just going to be a way of life where everything's just going to continually cost more because of the greed of these people They'll want to work for 5 years and then retire. And that's what everything's coming to. They're raising the prices to where they don't have to work over 5 or 10 years. They don't want to do the 20 year or 30 year or 40 year and then retire and get a gold watch. They think, well, I'm not working toward a gold watch, and that's what's the attitude that these communist professors are putting forth is make your money in 5 years, and it's all a communist agenda that a bunch of philosophers said, well, if this was to happen and this was to happen, and it would form us into a socialist or communist society. And so that's what they're doing. They're thinking, well, we could get to a place where we don't have to work except for, the basics, and that's all you'll have when you have this communist country. I mean, you think China, you think these people working in these jobs, you see a lot of people working from China. There's what, 1 billion people there, and they got a whole bunch of millionaires, a whole bunch of billionaires, but it's all these people that are, it might be their business or something like that. I don't know how they work. I'm not sure how it works, but I know there's people that nowadays there are people, employees, like a lot of them are females. They live in the country, and they go to the city to work because the farms, they're burdened with trying to feed enough people, and they either go to the city to go to school, then they get a job, and the job is like putting beads on a string for people to throw them at Mardi Gras, and they're getting like 10 cents a day. They stay in the factory where they work. The guy in charge, the supervisor, goes around and rapes them, gets them pregnant, and then nobody wants them because they're not married. And they either, what are they going to do with the kid? They're going to go back to the village, and that's twice the burden. But that's China. That's not here. And that's another problem is people, if you're comparing yourself to a third world country and say a superpower, and you say, well, you have it better than somebody in a third world country, that's not a very good comparison. If you can't compare yourself to another superpower. And basically a superpower nowadays is anybody with nukes. I mean, China's got nukes, Russia's got nukes, but I wouldn't call them are the people in Russia, are all the people there, are they, what's the, maybe there ought to be a study to show the comparison of the life in, say, the U.S., Russia, China, all these French, Germany, England, and all these different countries, and they show the different levels of life. Say somebody working as different levels, like some guy working as a welder here in the U.S., a welder in Russia, a welder in China, how they're doing off, what their jobs contain. And you can't just take. The thing is, these people that do these documentaries, they have an agenda to show something, whether it's to say that America's better, or China's better, or America and China is the same thing. They're not showing the realities, because there's a lot of levels of welder. Just a lot of levels of welders or construction. If you're a carpenter, a lot of levels of carpenters in the U.S. As far as pay goes, compared to other people in the U.S. working it's all the different levels of pay, and all the different levels of pay. There's got to be, and I don't know if there's different levels of pay in China, or once you're a carpenter, man, you make the same amount as everybody else, or is that how it is in Russia? That could be a giant documentary. That could be a multi-documentary. That could be like a volume of documentaries to show that. This week is on carpenters, showing carpenters in America, Russia, China, and all these, and then all the levels of carpentry in all the different places and how much they make. Say if there's a sole proprietor or a union person or a person working as an employee, and then do that with all the jobs. In manufacturing. There's so many that would be one heck of a documentary instead of just showing a chart. You can't see anything from a chart, and you have to have an unbiased documentary person in charge of that. You can't have them showing an agenda. That would be a heck of a. Yeah, I'll leave it right there.